Hello there, this is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates. It's Super Bowl Sunday. I am predicting that the Carolina Panthers are going to probably run away with the game. I'm not a fan either way, but having some people over today and going to have a good time. I have I think, important video today. It's probably going to be my most raw video that I've ever made. It might be one of the longest ones I ever make. I made a video, the 50 symptoms of Narcissistic Abuse Syndrome, and it was about a half an hour video, and it's been hugely popular and as viral as this topic gets, I think. And I think because people wanted a concentrated package of, let me really get my hands around what this is. So I'm going to do the same thing. And the title of this video is 50 Symptoms of Narcissistic Abusers. Now, I'm referring to, when I say narcissistic abusers, most of you know that I'm not just talking about people with narcissistic personality disorder, that I am also speaking about all the cluster B symptoms. I'm speaking about histrionic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. I don't know what's behind me. A buffalo. I got a buffalo behind me. In my case, my fiance was both a wicked borderline and a genuine antisocial personality disorder or psychopath. In the Bible, in the 3rd chapter of Acts, the 6th verse, the Apostle Peter says to people they were asking him for money, and he said, "Silver and gold have I none, but what I have, such as I have, I give I thee." And that scripture came to mind because if you're looking for the silver and gold of a world-class expert on cluster B disorders, that ain't me. There are people out there who have more research, more education, more years of working with this than I. What I have to give you, such as I have to give you, is my experience. I tangled with a particularly vicious cluster B individual, and it's fresh. I'm right at about 9.5 months of recovery, and I can paint pictures with words, and I can put a lot of heart in it. So just so you know, going into the video, this is not, a world-class treatise on the 50 traits that every expert would agree are the most defining characteristics of these disorders. This is my experience. The first 10 I put in order in terms of what I think are the most defining characteristics. So I also want to give a disclaimer about how raw this video is going to be. These people do mean, vicious, cruel, nasty, ugly things. And I'm fucking tired of dancing around it, to be honest with you. I'm just going to say what happened. And If your sensibilities are tender, turn the video off. I don't mean to be crude. I don't mean to be vulgar. I don't mean to offend anybody. But I want to keep it real. And I want to tell you what happened. And I don't want to have to dance around on eggshells worried about, oh, am I going to, offend somebody? I'm just going to tell you what happened, and I'm going to tell you from my heart, and I'm going to share some of my pain. So if sexual scenarios that are shocking, if salty language and raw emotion offend you, please turn the video off. But if you really want to know about the 50 symptoms of narcissistic abusers, and you're willing to go a little bit deep, then let's continue. Another disclaimer, and this is really important. I want to stress, I personally believe that I was not victimized by this particularly nasty, brutal, vicious, lying vampire woman. I believe that in love, we always are attracted to exactly the right person. And the purpose of this is Mother Nature would very much like to heal us, but cannot heal us until such a time as our walls are broken down. So we instinctively are attracted to people who are very much psychologically put together like the people who hurt us the most growing up. And my mother was a borderline. My mother had some antisocial personality tendencies. My mother didn't bond with me when I was a baby. She was self-centered. She was a liar. She was unfaithful to my father. She would steal. She did go to jail. Is it any surprise that in midlife, I'm scratching that itch, that I was very blindly and primitively attracted to a woman who was tall with red hair, just like my mother, who was my mother's psychological twin. And yeah, it almost killed me going through this experience with this woman. Yeah, those of you who've watched the videos have known how much I've suffered. But you know what? I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. And I feel free. And I feel like I have more to offer the world than I ever have. I feel like I have more to offer a woman than I've ever been able to offer. I certainly feel like I have more to offer my clients and more to offer you viewers. So it's all good. There are blessings in the pain. The light enters you at the wound, Rumi says. Okay, I'll stop fooling around and get to the list. Some of you get impatient with me and you're like, I watched for 9 minutes and he didn't even start the damn list. So here we go. In my experience, 50 symptoms of narcissistic abusers. Number one, they use and they take advantage of others. They have a very parasitic lifestyle. When I met this woman, I was 45 years old. I was recently divorced. I was needy. I was insecure. I was so naive. And this woman was looking for a man to pay the bills and take care of her. And I didn't think I had enough money to be anybody's sugar daddy, because I'm not a millionaire, and I just didn't think of myself in that way. But to her, I was a millionaire. So that's the first trait, is they lie and they take advantage and they use, and suck you dry. That's what they do. Number two, they have an unquenchable thirst for their narcissistic supply. Unquenchable. This woman in 6.5 years texted me incessantly. And if I texted her, I always heard back from her within minutes. Her constant complaint was, you didn't give me enough attention. It was gimme, gimme, gimme. And what I didn't know was she had a full-time second life where she was getting more attention from another man at work even than she was with me. And she pursued me frequently for sex, and she said, that's the only time I feel close. That's a good definition of, I'm sucking you dry for narcissistic supply. And again, what I didn't know was she was having as much sex with him as she was with me, if not more. So she was a cocaine addict in a drug factory. She was an alcoholic at a brewery. The world is filled with her drug. Her drug is men. And I'm glad I don't know the truth. I suspect she slept with many, many, many more men than I'm aware of, because that was her drug, the attention. Narcissistic abusers crave narcissistic supply, but when they're done with you, they can walk away and never text you again, never call you again, never see you again, not think one thing about it, because they have sucked that source until it got dry, and they've drilled for other sources elsewhere. So there's a ruthlessness to that. The third quality is narcissistic abusers are compulsive liars. The old saying, how do you know they're lying? Because their lips are moving. This woman probably hundreds of times looked at me and said, honey, I would never cheat on you. It's just not who I am. I've never cheated on anybody. And she was having sex with this guy 4 and 5 times a week for 6.5 years, off and on, but every chance she got. She went to the store and brought home a picture, one of those with a saying on it, and it says, here are our family rules, and the first rule was always tell the truth. Narcissistic abusers constantly lie. It is their very nature to lie. And if you're naive, and if you believe people because you tell the truth, and you project that onto them, that they probably tell the truth, then your head is going to be spinning. I kept having these experiences where something would go in my head, I would believe it, but something in my spirit and heart just said that something's off, but I never put it together. I was off kilter. I was off balanced the whole 6.5 years. The number 4 quality of narcissistic abusers is they're extremely cunning and manipulative. I got to say, I underestimated this woman. I didn't think she was very smart, but she was cunning. If we would have a fight, which was almost always initiated by her abandonment issues and her rage, and there was an ugly scene. I would wake up in the morning many times and I'd go to the coffee machine or I'd go to brush my teeth, and there were these lovely notes with colored pens. She kept colored pens close. And there were beautiful notes of apology. And I mistook that for empathy and love. That was cunning and manipulation. She didn't want to lose her gig. I had put her out of my house 3 times in our 6.5 years. And so she knew I was capable of doing that. So if the mask slipped just a little bit and the ugliness got out, I might get cute notes of apology, not from heart and empathy, but from cunning and manipulation. The number 5 trait of narcissistic abusers is they do use the defense mechanism of projection. Whoever they are, they will project it onto you. I have several really dear, wonderful friends who just happen to be female. And occasionally I would have dinner or breakfast with one of them, very occasionally. And this fiance of mine would throw a fit for days. And when I was gone having dinner, she'd rifle through my computer looking for signs of infidelity. And she would call me and text me and say, well, I'm going to go have dinner with the guy's name's Steve. I'm going to go have dinner with Steve. And it turns out, this is a guy she was having the affair with the whole time. So she just knew that every female friend I had, I was having sex with, because that's what she would do. And towards the end, got some fairly solid evidence that she was looking to line up another sugar daddy and was auditioning multiple men emotionally, financially, and sexually for that role in her life. So they project onto you that which they are. And if they lie and cheat, it's one of the best diagnostic tools to find a liar and cheaters, and that is if they're complaining about it to somebody who has absolutely positively no evidence or history that that's who they are. The number 6 trait or symptom of narcissistic abusers is that they have zero empathy. They have no empathy whatsoever. This woman, the way she told me about her long and excruciatingly ugly and just disgustingly full of betrayal acts of sexual deviance, she told me with no apology. She wasn't crying and saying, honey, I'm so sorry. It was just, this is what happened. But she would lie, and then upon further questioning, she would admit to more, and then she would admit to more, and then she would admit to more, and then she would admit to more. But there was no concern for how this might have been affecting me. And then she arranged, with the help of her flying monkey team, the very incompetent treatment team at the treatment center, the Bridge to Recovery in Kentucky, Bowling Green, Kentucky. She put together a grand finale for the ages where she strung me along through her 6 weeks of treatment with cards that were nice and encouraging. But then the last week before she was released, she sent me a certified letter, and the letter said, "Don't ever contact me again." It didn't say, "I'm sorry." It just said, basically, "I don't care about you. I don't care that you've been destroyed. I really don't care if you kill yourself. Just leave me the fuck alone." And this was encouraged and supported by this really malpractice type of treatment center, the Bridge to Recovery. The next symptom of narcissistic abusers is they have no remorse. They have no empathy. They have no remorse. The first day or two that this woman was in the treatment center, I got a card from her, and it was rambling on about her internal shame. I got cards about, we're out walking in the stream, and the wind is blowing in my face, and you should do that. It would help you. But there wasn't any, "I'm sorry." There wasn't any, "How are you doing?" There wasn't any empathy for the torture and the trauma that I had been going through. It was like this bubble of narcissistic obsession that she had, but it was as if I really didn't exist. The next symptom of narcissistic abusers is therapy makes them worse. Therapy makes them worse. If you get somebody who's a true narcissist and the therapist doesn't recognize them for who they are, then they get on the playing field. They get on the playing field of, "I'm doing the work. I'm psychologically righteous. I'm changing." And they're a fraud. They're not changing. They're not capable of changing. So therapy gives them a sense of self-righteousness. It equips them with a lot of words and phrases. When this woman went in the treatment center, she was humbled. She was afraid. She was exposed. But when she left the treatment center 6 weeks later, she was arrogant. She was empowered. She was ruthless. And she was dominant. Therapy made her 10 times bigger of a monster than what she was. I mean, it didn't really make her a bigger monster. It just empowered the monster that was already there. Because she had the almighty word of the treatment center that she wasn't the problem. The problem was the person who was wounded and destroyed the way I was. And the person who acted irrationally, who acted reactively, who raged and who destroyed some property and who was just a walking ball of fire of woundedness and not self-mutilation, narcissistic mutilation. So what I do now with narcissists, if they walk in my office, is I get the codependent person aside and I say, let's work on you. because this guy's conning us, and I'm not having it. I don't want to work with you guys together. You're in danger, and I'm not going to go along with the pretense that this person is doing therapy. Every time I meet with them, it's as if they haven't learned a thing, because you know why? They haven't learned a thing. So I name the truth. Good therapy is about naming the truth, no matter what the truth is. If the truth offends somebody, so be it. But you got to get to the truth. Every time a therapist or a treatment center gives the thumbs up to a stone-cold, hurtful narcissist who has no empathy or remorse, the world becomes a worse place, and people can die. People can die of suicide. People can die of homicide. People can die a slow death of having their lives destroyed by the many overpowering symptoms of narcissistic abuse syndrome. The next symptom of narcissistic abusers is they lack a sense of self. They don't have a self. They're an actor looking for a role. They don't have a core that tells them, this is me. So when this woman met me, she transformed herself into, I'm a upper middle class Carmel housewife who's into therapy. And that wasn't her. She was a country bar going sex addict who slept with countless men, who was an alcoholic, who was vulgar and crude and mean and a rager and loud and boisterous. She's everything I thought she was, she wasn't. But she didn't show who she was, because a lot of those things aren't socially acceptable. So she had a role that she played constantly, and then she had her real life with her real friends. I really honestly feel as if I never even met this person. I was engaged to her. I lived with her for 6.5 years, but I never met her. I never really met her. The next symptom of narcissistic abusers is shame. When you confront these people, they become extremely defensive. They take no responsibility. They have this internal shame, which if you confront them, they are going to rage at you. Many times my experience with this woman was, if I finally did stand up to her and name some things, she would go into a rage. And the last week before she went into the treatment center, I confronted her mother and basically said this, that I believe your daughter is this way because she has shame. Guess what the mom did? She raged at me and just about physically hit me, and she looked just like her daughter. The next symptom of narcissistic abuse, this is one I mentioned in a previous video here recently. It just came to me. They're clowns. These people are cartoon characters. They're immature. They're babies. They're cowards. They're clowns with big bozo nose and big shoes. They're cunning. They're good liars. But when it comes down to it, they're very infantile and very immature. And they're not worth your time. They're not worth your energy. Move on with your affections, because these people, they classify the word loser. They're losers in every way, shape, and form. The next symptom is emptiness. This woman would often complain, and it was clear that nobody was home. There was an internal sense of emptiness. The next one, number 13, is they are substance abusers. This woman would have bouts of 3 bottles of wine a night, and the dishes were all undone, and the laundry was not done, and she would come home and I would have cleaned the kitchen, and she would rage at me because of her internal shame. The next symptom is they love bomb. And I'm going to give an example from my career. I didn't have the savvy to notice narcissistic abusers early in my career, and I hired a fellow, and I told him I was looking for somebody who could produce such and such. And in his email to me, he said, well, how about if I promise you I can do 10 times that much? And that sort of got my attention. And it should have caused me to run. It should have caused me to realize I'm dealing with a con artist. And the thing was, he did produce 10 times what the others did. He was cheating insurance companies to do it. He was causing clients to be addicted to him because of his manipulation. But talk about love bombing. To an employer who somebody says, I'm going to make you X amount of dollars, that's pretty attractive. The next symptom of a narcissistic abuser is they surround themselves with flying monkeys. I was unwise enough to send this woman to a therapy group in my practice, dear God, and she would go in there and let the mask slip and just vent and trash me with untruths and projections. And then it soured a couple of my therapists and many of my clients because these people, if they can talk with you for 20 minutes, they can convert you to flying monkey status. The 16th symptom is these people have cover friends. They need to look good. They need to con. This woman would go to churches and make friends in churches. She was the devil. But she would make friends in churches, and to this day, there are good Christian people who believe that she's a good Christian woman. But she just needed a good cover, and she needed people to take care of her. The next symptom is their real friends are borderlines and narcissists and dark sex addicts and liars and thieves, and birds of a feather flock together. The next symptom is they have cover significant others, which is what I was. She needed to look successful. Her brothers are successful and have nice homes. And this woman was divorced and lived in a shack. And, her ex-husband remarried and had a beautiful home. And this woman needed a cover. She needed some legitimacy. And there's a sucker born every day. And I was that guy. I know this is going long, but this is important stuff. Bear with. The next symptom is they definitely attract and connect with fellow psychopaths. The man she was involved with was just the worst, most depraved human being I'd ever heard of, but right next to, very similar to my false person fiance. This fellow, sex addicts attract sex addicts and liars, and that's what happened here. The next symptom is they have a very high sense of entitlement. I told this woman that, in my addiction to her, I was still willing to I was still believing that there was somebody in there who loved me, and I was willing to try to work on things. And I told her that I wasn't going to let her keep the current car she had because it was a trigger to me, but I had another car of the same make, just a few years older. And she said, no, that's a piece of crap. I'm not driving it. I'm too good to drive it. And that's the car I drive. I like it. High entitlement. She had a very high entitlement to sex. She would have sex with whoever she wanted to just because she wanted to. 21, these narcissistic abusers are just filled with rage. Towards the end of our relationship, I was cowering in the basement, frankly, sort of afraid of her because of the degree of her rage. She was very scary. I had called the police on her on 7 different occasions because of her verbal and sometimes physical abuse. Number 22, they're very financially irresponsible. She told me she wanted to step up and be a partner and participate in the bills. So she took over paying the utilities for a very short amount of time. And I don't know if she got this money from this man because he would pay her for sexual acts. And she basically practiced prostitution. But I was in San Francisco visiting my son, and I got a call from my daughter saying the electricity had been shut off because in her second month of stepping up and being responsible, she didn't pay the electric bill. It cost me $930 to get it turned back on. The next symptom is that they are stone cold sex addicts. This woman would, before she met me, go to the country bar on, I believe it's the east side, called 8 Seconds. And she and her friends had a game, and that is they would pick out the guy they wanted her to have sex with that night, and the challenge was for her to get him in bed, and she was legendary. I didn't find this out till later. She told me she did it 1 time. She probably did it 100 times. So that's a stone cold sex addict. There was an incident toward the end of our relationship where I came, she summoned me to the bedroom, and she was angry because I didn't get there soon enough. And she was there, her eyes were glazed over. She was wearing a negligee I hadn't seen before. She had makeup on, and she was yelling and screaming at me because I didn't get there soon enough to meet her sexual needs. And then she screamed out, "I'll call Steve. He'll fill in the blank." That is a sexual addict. Towards the end of our relationship, she was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, telling me she had to be to work by 5. But she was going over to his house and leaving me to care for her son and get her son to school. Number 24, these people are highly emotionally reactive. They're childish. They're embarrassing. Number 25, they have massive abandonment issues. They have irrational jealousy. Number 26, they use suicide as manipulation. In November, 5 months before I was shattered, she attempted suicide. Took about 3 Ambien, and she set the room up and had pictures of her son. And I had to call the police and call an ambulance and have her hauled off, but it was a form of manipulation. And what it served to do, there had been some distance between her and her fellow sex addict, and it drew him into her web. It was definitely a manipulation tactic. Number 27, these people are highly devaluing. They can devalue you and make you feel like a total piece of crap. Number 28, they're highly impulsive. They don't know how to keep money in their pocket. They have sex on the first date. They're very impulsive. Number 29, they're highly moody. One of the symptoms or the traits of my mother was her moodiness. She was like a thundercloud. You never knew whether she'd be Doris Day or whether she'd be a thundercloud who'd light you on fire. Number 30, these narcissistic abusers have a lot of paranoia. They know how dark the world is because they are darkness. Number 31, they destroy their children. My heart breaks for her son. He's so filled with rage. And this story that she told me and tells everybody is, he's like that because his dad rages. No, he's like that because his mom abandons him. So many times I would nurture this boy and hug him, and he'd say, I miss my mom. And he was so filled with rage. One day he cut a fish in half with his knife, little knife. 8 years old. He missed his mother. Number 32, they will arrange a grand finale once they have made arrangement for alternative sources of narcissistic supply. And the grand finale will be ruthless. It's designed to destroy you, and it's designed to have some fun and to have some flair. Number 33, these people are mastermind fuckers. Many times this woman would get off work early, go over to the sex addict's house, have sex several times, come home, and I'd be home a little bit later. We'd have dinner and, we'd plan to make love, but she had to get in the shower first. And this woman who just left the bed of another man would draw hearts on the shower, the glass shower doors, and say how much she loved me as she was washing off the sex from another man. That's a mind fuck. These people, number 34, they enjoy your destruction. Number 35, they're highly self-absorbed. Number 36, if you put them in a treatment center, they will run the place. It takes a skilled clinician to recognize cluster B people, and they should not be put in the general population of other fragile, broken people. You don't put sharks in a tank with dolphins. And that's what happens in a lot of treatment centers. There's 2 or 3 borderlines running the place. Number 37, these people, they're scary, they're intimidating. Number 38, sometimes their masks slip and you see little pictures of who they are, which is why I put her out of my house 3 times. Is I got a glimpse of the ruthlessness, and then the cute little notes didn't work. Number 38, number 39, they have alternative personalities. It's almost, Sam Vaknin says, it's almost like multiple personality disorder. When the mask came completely off, I could tell this woman, there was no, I won't use her name, but she didn't exist. There was a woman in her body who carried herself different, talked different, had a different voice, and she handed me over the keys to the car. She handed me over the phone and basically says, you got me, I'm caught. The gig is up. I don't, and I still was fooled after that. That's how much the wounded little boy wants to believe. These people have no long-term goals. She would sit in here in this room, in the living room, and play in her iPad and watch shows about cats playing. And of course, she was texting various men as well, while I was writing books and looking to build a future. She just, Her life was her addiction and her next feeding of narcissistic supply. Number 41, again, these people, they draw to themselves not only people who are cluster B, but sex addicts draw sex addicts. This Falsing character who works at a large multinational pharmacy company, not Eli Lilly, he used his position as a trainer to seduce this addict. I'm sure it was very simple to do. But this man, Steve Falsing, would sit at his desk and masturbate. He would kiss and fondle this woman right at work. They would spend all day IMing, back and forth, sexual things. This man was so sexually addicted that to show his love and devotion for her and his sexual passion, he would drink her urine. This is what these people are. They are just monsters. They're sexual monsters. And the company didn't want a lawsuit, so they covered it up. I found this man's shirts in my drawers when I came home from the treatment center. There were 2 shirts I'd never seen before. They were his shirts. Number 42, these people's, the real self, are arrogant and haughty. Number 43, ironically, even though the real self are boisterous and loud and arrogant and brassy, at the inside, deep down, they do have a lot of self-loathing. It's not conscience. They have no conscience, but it is shame. Number 45, drama, 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 drama. Number 46, these people use whatever tools, whatever weapons they have available. If they have money, they use money. If they have charm, they use charm. If they have good looks, they use good looks. This woman I was involved with had long, sexy legs, and she had her body. Sex was her stock and trade and her bait that she would draw men to give her narcissistic supply. That was her weapon, her sex. These people get to the point where they can actually believe their own lies. They can't tell the difference between a truth and a lie. Number 48, they'll apologize, but it's their false self apologizing. The 8-year-old, her son, when he was in trouble, he would go, "I'm sorry." And that's sort of the apologies, even about these horrible sexual betrayals. "I'm sorry." It was just whiny and insincere and shallow and like a child. Number 49, these people are irresponsible at work. I mentioned the constant IMing, running out at lunchtime to have oral sex in parking lots. And there was a lot of cattiness and childishness that had her constantly in trouble with her boss. And then the 50th symptom of narcissistic abusers is internal boredom. Since they lacked a sense of self, you couldn't just be, you couldn't just connect with yourself and have joy in and of yourself. You needed stimulation constantly. In the background, we have the Golden Gate Bridge where my son lives in San Francisco and where the Super Bowl takes place later today. So there you have it. 50 symptoms of narcissistic abusers. These are wicked people. These are dangerous people. I've gotten where I can spot them a mile away. And you need to recognize who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with somebody like this, learn more about yourself, learn more about your family of origin, learn more about these cluster B disorders, and learn more about narcissistic abuse syndrome, because if you've been involved with these people, you've been traumatized, you have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and you're going to need treatment on a lot of different levels. Folks, if you haven't joined our YouTube channel, please do that. And also visit familytreecounseling.com. I have 2 great videos that go into more detail about narcissistic abuse syndrome. And I have 5 books that will help you in your recovery process. Thank you for hanging in here till the end of this. This is who these people are. Protect your hearts and grieve, and know that we people who've gone through this, we care about you. And I care about you guys, and I hope this has been helpful. And thank you for watching. And God bless.